Let's get started with PayPal Complete Payments. In this video guide, I'll go over common payment methods and features that are outlined in our Complete Payments all-in-one solution. Some of these include PayPal Payments, Pay Later, messaging, card processing, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Fastlane, and other features as well, such as our updated shipping callback module and app switch. As a disclaimer, the intended audience for this video is for developers and those who have technical experience writing JavaScript and with back-end engineering. We do have other videos explaining how to create our PayPal buttons and links, which are our low-code alternatives, so you can also review those instead if needed. You may or may not have seen any of my other integration videos and may notice that this one is significantly longer than my usual 3 to 5 minute video guides. This is because it's jam-packed with many different features and products implemented in the project files, but I will add chapters to this video so that you can skip to any specific section if desired. In this video, I've built a project meant to showcase all of these payment methods and features, as well as to be a project that you can take a peek at the code and further understand the implementation aspect of it. Some nuances are better understood by simply looking over the code instead of merely hearing the explanation of it. This project is for educational demonstration only. This demo shows you the concepts and building blocks placed together in a realistic yet simplistic example of an e-commerce website for one product. Do not just grab the whole code or chunks of the code and replace your credentials and process live payments with it or anything like that. Learn the implementation patterns of each feature and payment method and adapt these patterns in your website, your app, your project, to meet your company's security, compliance, and performance requirements. Let's start by taking a glance of the file structure of this demo project. You'll have a link to everything I'm showing in the description. I've placed all of the HTML files in the root location, so you'll have the index, cart, checkout, product page, and the receipt page. All CSS files, all images, and all JavaScript files, except for one, will be organized inside the assets directory. And lastly, the payments.js file here in the root location is the launching pad to everything payment related, and it's what I'll demonstrate as well. Aside from the payment stuff, I made the front-end code not reliant on libraries, be as vanilla as I could, and it's build lists so you can copy and paste these and drop it in your front end. Just replace all of the server-side URLs. Speaking of server-side, I'll be going over those files as well. In order to keep the server-side stuff as normalized or conceptual as possible, I'll go into our init.js file here, where it just declares some constants that hold the server-side endpoints that do different things. I'll go over what each do simply using our REST API calls, which don't require a library or backend SDK, so you can build them out using your preferred programming language. So we have about 5 files that will use PayPal code inside, so we'll take a look at that shortly. That's it for the file structure. Let's do a demo walkthrough of the project and I'll explain the payment concepts happening, and then we can dive into what the code looks like for you to use and repurpose the learnings for your project. So here's the demo website homepage. The first concept I'll begin sharing with you is that one of our best practices for optimization is to load our front-end SDK on a page preceding any of the pages where our JavaScript SDK needs to be used. So as you can see, if I open up the browser DevTools here, a PayPal SDK has been preloaded in the cache, and this page doesn't have anything to do with payments yet. So really quickly, some context regarding this project that you're looking at. This is a fake website where you could purchase a shirt with 2 lines of words, and you can customize those 2 lines on the spot right before you purchase and get yourself a nice custom t-shirt. So let's navigate to our product page. I'll click here. Once the user has modified their custom product, let's change this to maybe Spanish. Change the size. I can click on the PayPal button right away directly from the product page here. But let me continue showcasing other features, so I won't log in just yet. So close out this window here and let's change the quantity to something higher like 10, and now click on Add to Cart. Now in the cart page, you'll see that our messaging will display the Buy Now, Pay Later installment plan monthly payment amount here. You can click on it and the modal will pop up more information. This educational aspect of it is very handy for user conversion. I'll close that. As you can see on this button stack here, we also display Venmo, Pay Later, Google Pay, and I'll also demonstrate Apple Pay in a bit. For PayPal, I've also integrated App Switch, which makes it so that if you already have the PayPal app, after clicking on the PayPal button on your mobile web browser, you will be sent to an experience where the view will switch to the PayPal app to complete the payment, and then switch back to the website afterwards. I'm placing the mobile view on screen so you can get an idea of the behavior that I'm mentioning. Also, I'll take this time to mention another feature called shipping callback, which involves our server server-side shipping callback where you can implement your own logic to returning shipping options and prices based on your own custom rules that you want to run on the data that we return back to your endpoint every time the user makes any changes on the screen related to shipping. So I'll show you here that the only rule I've implemented so far for the purposes of this demo is that if it detects an address from Arizona, that's the state that I'm in, I will get a new shipping option called Same State as Business Standard Shipping Special, which in my case is $0. I already have a free shipping option as well, but it's mainly so you can see on screen that it's possible. Here it is. I've changed to an address in Arizona, and here is that new option that I mentioned, and it will only work in the way that my custom code implemented it because I get the full shipping details anytime there is an address change, and my endpoint receives that data and decides what to return after running some custom logic. That logic is what you can program into your endpoint that will determine what to return back as options for customers to see and use. In a similar style to how PayPal's app switch works, Venmo has always worked that way through the app. So I'll show you the mobile screen, as well as you can see that Venmo will also take you directly to the Venmo app to complete the payment in similar fashion. Let me add more items to the cart to quickly demo Pay Later. It's essentially the same as the PayPal button, but the benefit here is that it takes you directly to the installment plan options page after login. You see here that you can choose the pay in 4 or pay monthly. I'll quickly go through the screens as if I were applying for it here. And there we go, I'm approved. I'll continue, and from here it's the same or similar experience to a PayPal payment. Google Pay works on mobile as well as desktop, and you can see this here as it says, your payment won't work because you're in a test environment. You can view the shipping options that I've given it here, and you can complete a payment. So let's do that. This time I'll click on Pay, and you will get a peek at the basic receipt page that I've made here. Let's go back to the product page, but this time switching to an Apple device. As you can see, this will work similar to Google Pay as its own digital wallet, but for compatible Apple devices in Safari browser. I'll go ahead and complete the payment on this as well, and there it is. Perfect. Now let's add something to the cart and head to the checkout page. I'll type out an email that I've previously purchased with, and you may notice a small spinner, and we can see that this pop-up that Fastlane by PayPal has detected that I have a Fastlane account and can do a one-time password via text. For Sandbox, this will always be all ones, so if we try this, you'll see that it pre-populated these 2 whole sections for addresses. Now we just have to pick a shipping option, and when we get to the payment methods, there will already be a predefined securely stored card to choose from. And at any point, I can click here to change either the card or the shipping options with my Fastlane account. Let's go ahead and complete the payment. Perfect. Now I've added for quick debugging or testing a query param that you can append. So if we go to the product page once more, add something to the cart, continue to the checkout page, and in the URL, we can now add a query parameter debug equals disable FL and hit enter. This will reload the page with Fastlane disabled just for this demo project so you can see what our direct card implementation looks like without Fastlane. Let me just manually fill everything out first here. I'll fast forward all this so you don't have to wait. And that's exactly why our shortcut or express buttons as well as Fastlane work to accelerate all this checkout process. But now that I'm at the last step, payment methods, you can still use any of our digital wallet options as well as simply use the card processing option using our test cards with the rest of the numbers being ones in this case, and any expiration date in the future and any 3-digit security code, and complete the payment. Now here for this example, I've already added something to the cart and I've filled out the whole checkout page, but this email here was not detected by Fastlane because I've never used it with Fastlane before. In this case, by the time that I arrive at the last step, the card form will include a save your info with Fastlane toggle option that you can associate with a phone number, and your customers can create a Fastlane account as simple as that for future streamlined payments with Fastlane if they so choose. Well, that's it for showcasing the demo website project. Now let's go ahead and dive into the code. Let's start with the front-end code and let's open up payments.js, which is merely a launching pad that bootstraps all of the other front-end functions together. You'll notice the file size is not that long. It's unnecessary really, but I made it so that it's easier on the eyes. This procedural set of functions are what initiate and power the payment_utils.js file. And if we open that file, it's just a long list of functions that interact directly with the PayPal SDK and do every small and large task related to payments. Like there are functions that take the payload responses of all the different wallets like Apple Pay or Google Pay and normalizes them to PayPal's API schema, and many more utility methods. So it's all of the possible payment-related functionality dumped in one long file, and payments.js is used to turn the key on the main features and make for a slightly more understandable video guide. So let's take a look at it. We can start here. We first get the client data from one of the endpoints, and then configure in this array which features and products you want to load on the website. PayPal, Venmo, and Pay Later buttons are all in this buttons string, and we have our messaging feature here, and the rest require a card processing application type approval that you will need to log into your production account to enable. In Sandbox, you can enable these in the Sandbox app that you create. You'll notice that I isolated each feature or product within a chained .then, and you will have a block statement that represents this one isolated feature. So this powers the buttons, and the next one powers the messages, and you can see the basic arguments passed, such as which element class we will look at to update and render all of the messaging divs. For the card processing, in this block, we pass the selector for each card field. For Google Pay, we load their SDK in the document head and give the class names for the button container, and same for Apple Pay. For Fastlane, we're doing the same thing. And then you have this final .then that is blinked that you can add your own procedures at the end in case you want to test some stuff. But that's the basics of how this file works. It kickstarts the dominoes so that you can see the behind the scenes if you follow the trail of functions. So let's follow one, for example. We can trace the functions for Google Pay, for example. So Google Pay starts here, render Google Pay button. Let's open up our payment_util.js and find this function, render Google Pay button. It appears to be bootstrapping Google Pay and somewhat cosmetic here, but here I see the possible next step in this setter, which is a function that fires once the button is clicked. So let's go here. On Google Pay button clicked. Here we see the Google Pay payments client variable is built by this function here, get Google Payments client. So let's navigate there. Here are our two main callbacks in here, payment data callbacks. Let's take a look at the main one, on payment authorized. All right, so this one seems to be one of the main ones. I can see we return a promise here. And by the way, these are all Google Pay specific functions and chain of events that I'm guiding you through the integration that I've already built out using Google Pay's documentation and our SDK combined. So I'm doing a regular fetch call from our create PayPal order endpoint, and I'll go over our backend endpoints in 2 seconds here, but that will return an order ID that we use to then run Google Pay's confirm order function. And if it's marked as approved, then I will change the state to success per Google Pay's docs and then run another endpoint to complete the payment with that same order ID. In this project, I use local storage heavily to manage the session basket. So I'm constantly updating the session basket with payload responses. And after every payment completion, I check for declines here. I've created this helper function to check the response payload. And then if all is well, I redirect to the receipts endpoint here to display the final outcome. What I just guided you may have seemed like a lot, or I'm searching these functions in the doc. You may see code around it that may seem like a lot, but just know that this is all of the products that I mentioned at the beginning of the video combined in a demo website. So don't think you will have to include or code all of this. Just take the bits and pieces that you will apply to your website with the products or features or wallets that you want to grab and use on your site. Let's go back to the payments.js file, and in this list of products and features here, I need to point out the main standout parts of the integration that you may not find in the code. For Fastlane, you will have to give a list of specific domains that you want to use Fastlane with, and I'll show that in the server-side code shortly. For Google Pay and Apple Pay, you must have the card fields or the card processing feature enabled first on your PayPal account before any of these can work. For Apple Pay, you're required to add a specific file that they provide you in a specific location on your website, as well as add the URL to your PayPal account dashboard to verify that the file is there. Let's see more on this. As you can see in my file structure here, I have a directory called .well-known. If I open this up, it contains the file that Apple Pay will give you. I'll link the Sandbox file documentation in the video description, but for the production, you will see this and be able to download it logging into your PayPal account. Let's show that now. Here we are logged into the PayPal Sandbox seller account. We can see that we're in Sandbox mode in the address bar up here. These steps are also the same for production though. Let's go at the top right and click on your initials and click on account settings. And then if we scroll down on the left menu, click on Payment Methods, then we can scroll back up a little and find the Apple Pay section, and to the far right of that, click on Manage Apple Pay. Now we're taken to a place where we can add the domain name for validation of that file inside of the .well-known directory. So click on Add Domain here and add your qualified domain name here. You'll want to download this file, which I already include in the project files, and ensure it's located in this location on your website as shown here. Once you've done all that, click on Register Domain to initiate the validation check, and it will see that the file exists and is valid, and you will finish registering the website with Apple Pay. Just a quick note on Apple Pay Sandbox testing. The actual testing with pretend information in an Apple Pay account is a process outside of PayPal or our APIs. You will have to use Apple Pay's documentation, and as you can see here in one of their help articles, to create Sandbox accounts and test, you will need to sign in to what's called their App Store Connect. And if you don't already have an account, you must navigate to the Apple developer website to purchase and apply for a yearly developer account that will get you access to this once approved. And now we can click on Users and Access and navigate to the Sandbox tab. You can click on the plus sign here and fill out this information to create a Sandbox account. This will give you credentials to a Sandbox iCloud account that you can use on an Apple device and go into the iCloud settings and log in. Once you log in, it will go through accepting the user agreement and some other initial stuff before it can actually work to make test Sandbox transactions. Now, back to the code. Let's view the last portion of this video guide, which will be our backend endpoints. As a reminder, the backend code reviewed on screen will be PHP, but you can build your own endpoints simply using our REST API calls that serve to standardize any endpoint functionality by simply making network calls in your preferred programming language. In the project files, I've included a link to the backend of a few common programming languages that will serve as helpers to match the same explanations that I will be giving on each endpoint, but for other programming languages. So please take a look at the link in the description to see if your preferred programming language is included and use those files instead. The files that we will be reviewing are outlined here in this front-end init.js page here. There are a few other files also not listed, so let's go ahead and view those server-side files. Let's start with our environment file here. If you open this up, it contains the client ID and secret key that you can obtain in your developer dashboard. I'll show how to grab that in a bit. You can set production or Sandbox here. Also, if you're using Fastlane, then this is where you will set the list of domain names that you want Fastlane to work on. So we can close that out. The PayPal client tokens file will return an access token that is client ready. If you look at the parameters sent here, it converts an access token into a client token specifically for Fastlane use. So if you aren't using Fastlane, you don't have to return this whole SDK client token response altogether. Just make sure that you modify this on the front end code as well. We will also return the client ID since that will power the front end SDK, and it will tell the browser if you've decided to use Sandbox or production, as that also makes a difference to the front end code. You'll see many of these checks up front at the top of most files. This is just for the browser cores for those checks to pass faster, so we can disregard these for the video guide, but they will be there. I do have a placeholder database file that simulates the responses that a database may give you. I didn't want databases to be a stopping point to anybody attempting to use these files, so I just hard-coded some so that the demo project can still work. You will see product unit amounts and sizes and shipping prices and options. This supports what your business should already have implemented, which is that specific data points not being changeable at all via the front end, namely the prices of things and options. Here we have the create PayPal order file. If we go down to core purchase unit, you will see the whole JSON body begins to be built, and I will add a reference link to this API call in the description. You have your shipping options, the addresses. If Fastlane tokens get sent from the browser, then it will take another route and use the token. Otherwise, the payment source is built differently here for PayPal and Venmo. And we have a shipping callback, which I will show right now as well. And lastly, we will run this API call and send to PayPal to create the order. At the end here, if this was a Fastlane purchase, there is no create order. It will use the create order API call to capture the order. Now, let's take a look at the shipping callback file. The shipping callback is a way to return your own custom shipping options and prices dynamically. This means that you can create your own customization on what gets returned back based on some conditions that PayPal returns to you, such as the addresses. So I made a super simple example here, which I demoed earlier at the beginning of this video, as you will see in the custom shipping rules function, stating that If the state is found to be the same state as the business, in this case Arizona, then the custom rule that it will apply is to set a price and shipping label called Same State as Business Standard Shipping Special. Of course, this is merely for demo purposes. You can add any rules, such as better prices for more quantity, some discounts per state, or anything else. Once you calculate everything, parse it using our JSON shape and return it as a payload response. Now, moving on to the send card payment file, that's essentially the same as the PayPal create order file, but specific to card processing. You still run the same API call and use the same purchase unit object, but you aren't sending any PayPal shipping callbacks or anything like that. Things like that would have to be done on the website side of things. The next file, now the purpose of the get order details file is simply to fetch the current details of any given order. And I use this for some processes on the website where I don't have access to this information at the time. And I just need to do a quick fetch. So that's all this file is. And you can see here we are getting the details simply by the PayPal order ID. Lastly, the complete payment file captures the approved order. And as you can see, it's pretty simple API call. Just add the order ID to the endpoint here, telling it to capture, and you will get the response and send it to the browser. Now, it's important to format it and sanitize it so that you remove any details that you are absolutely not using on the browser and just clean it up. So that's what I'm doing in this function here. I have this payload for declined payments and this one for successful responses. And down here, I'm sanitizing everything and so on. Let's end this video by navigating to developer.paypal.com and clicking on the login at the top right. I'm logging into my real production PayPal account, which gives me access to both my Sandbox and production credentials. Let's demonstrate how to generate the credentials that will power all of these features. Once you're logged in, click on Apps and Credentials. Notice that by default, this toggle at the top right is set to Sandbox. This is good. Once you need the production credentials, you can toggle that. For now, let's click on Create App. And all you have to do is give your new app for your project or website a name and leave this radio option to Merchant. And you can change the Sandbox email that you want it to use as a seller account, or just leave the one that was created for you as is and click on Create App. Here is where you will find your client ID, and if you click on this eye icon, you will see the secret key and apply these in your environment file. If you scroll down to the Sandbox info section, you can view the password to log into the Sandbox PayPal account as a seller. Lastly, make sure that in this section below that under Features, that you have the advanced credit and debit card payments enabled along with the wallets Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Fastlane below to use any of these features in this project file. Clicking on Manage on any of these will take you to log into the PayPal Sandbox account to configure the wallet settings as I showed previously. Thank you for sticking with me this whole time. I know this was a lengthy video, but that's it. We have now successfully gone over PayPal Complete Payments.